There was a bit of a issue this morning. So one of our partners for the event, that is LG Electronics, I requested them that they were to do their small presentation on some of their new innovations later at 4 o'clock right now. So I would request Indranil from LG to do a quick presentation before we start our session. Thank you.
Mike? Yeah, Mike. Thank you. Hello. Yeah, thank you everybody. And first of all, grand welcome to hospitality. So we have learned how to smile with eyes. We have to every time move our marks to identify ourselves. But good to see everybody here. So a very good evening for all the distinguished panelists here and the entire audience who's out there. So we have now entered into the new school of hospitality. So we can see people sitting in chairs and tables. So first of all, I think I would introduce myself. I'm Indranil Basu. I head the hospitality for LG Electronics. And so we are here to present a small innovative ideas about what we are doing in hospitality space. So I'll quickly move with the slides. So first of all, why LG Hotel TVs? So we have a very short quick video, which will take you to understand why LG Hospitality first. So this series we call as LG Magnet. Now we have an LG LED block. Thank you. So this is what we call an LG magnet and LG block. This is a completely active LED technology, which emits all true colors. And the future of hotel industry and future of LED is this. So wherever in the public area or a little stupid looking pillars on the lobby, so we can convert this to entire an LED block. So every space of a hotel with an LED could be an ROI for a hotelier in future. So this is what we are converting ourselves in the future. So this is again an area which the first panelists of the general managers, they spoke about hotel being converted into a space where you can give we can give a luxury of a cinema. So this is what we say. So this is a hotel cinema. It's a very innovative technology and a solution which we could make at your premise with LG LED. So now a little solution by space. I think all of us know this. A hotel, every space in a hotel, may it be a lobby, may it be a parking spot, maybe it outdoor, maybe it a banquet, maybe it a room. So you can use LG everywhere. So we have products for all the solutions for a hotel. Not only we are restricted to room because people know us mostly by room TVs, since approximately about 60% or 70% of the rooms or a hotel comprise of room, but we have solutions for each and every spot and space. So this is a reception where you can change the entire look of reception now with an LG LED. This is a lobby where you can change the structure of a lobby or a pillar with an entire LED. This is the entrance of the lobby. So in case the hotel is in Goa where you have a casino, so you can just plan this on the entrance wall. This is a hallway. So people, we don't encash the hallways in terms of revenue in hotel. Now you can do that. So this is an outdoor where you can place an LED outside the hotel. This is the swimming pool area where you can place an LED, which is a high brightness. Even in the brightest of the sun, you can see it. You can use it in the bar restaurant, a fitness center, and this is ultimately the guest room. So guest room, we have a lot of automations. We would be very specific once you visit our booth. I don't want to kill the time here. And here is a very innovative solution again for the lobby, where we have a transparent OLED. So you can have a receptionist speaking behind the transparent OLED, specifically during any pandemic time. You are using a plain glass. So this glass can be converted to a touchscreen TV. So this is a transparent OLED TV. So this is again, we never thought of this while using it in the hotel during regular times. But pandemic have actually made us think all those innovations. So now we have a very innovative solution for a meeting room and boardroom, which is never thought for. We kind of use a projector and we actually kill that space, whereas you can earn revenue from that space. So we have a very innovative solution which is called interactive panel for the boardrooms. Please, can you have a video? So many of us speaks about converting a hotel space into as good as a corporate meeting space. So how would you do that? We cannot do that with a projector screen which is currently available. So what we can do this with LG Interactive Solutions. wherein people would love to come and hold a board meeting at the hotel, not holding at his office. Hotel is a much more, it's a space where people can actually believe in terms of hygiene, in terms of the current pandemic situation. You know, a lot of people speaks about a place where you can have food in a comfort. So they can use hotel with this LG Interactive. So all the meeting rooms can be a comfort to a guest or maybe a corporate to use this. So this is a proposal by Space. You can use interactivity to the ultimate level in this boardroom. This can be used as a TV as well as a interactive whiteboard, blackboard, and you can use it as a wireless screen projections. And this is available with 65 to 86 size. So I will just quickly move on to some reference sites. Even in pandemic, it's a thought for that we didn't do a lot of projects, but yes, we could manage with our beautiful televisions. We could manage few sites. So this is Ritz-Carlton. We did it last year, last year, in fact, 2019 they opened. So we did it with all OLED. This is the new Ritz-Carlton in Pune. We did the Raffles in Udaipur, which is kind of opening in 2021. They're planning by Q2 in 2021. This is Grand Hyatt in Gurgaon, the IREO one, where which is also yet to open by 2021. And this is a bit of Radisson Blue in the new Radisson one, which is the Mumbai International, which is just opened, and it have beautiful rooms. And this is, which is an ongoing, which is Taj Mahal. They are going for a renovation in Delhi, so we are also doing this project. We have support from all these trusted partners whom we always support, and they support us. And we have managed to enter into all their prime properties with our TVs and with this LG NanoCell TV specifically. So please do visit our store booth. We are right there outside the door. And a big round of applause to hospitality for me. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a nice audience. Thanks, Mr. Berry, and so I'll just hand over this mic to you.
Thank you so much, Indranil. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, let's get back to our other business of carrying on with the panel. I've shared some of these questions with my colleagues, so allow me to start with the first one. I will start from Zubin from the far left. Where does the business stand across your system? You are presently operating at what staff strength? Revenues from which streams? Any prominent changes that you see in your business in 2021 as opposed to 2019? I think we all know the micro picture, which we also shared in the first session today with the general managers. What I'm looking for now is across the board, across the chains, and you're all representing the bulk of Indian hospitality virtually sitting here. So with you, Zubin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Good afternoon, everyone. We're having a chat actually with some of our general managers who are here. They said, make a bold statement tonight. I think we are in for a V-shaped recovery. That's where business stands, to answer the question you asked. February, the portfolio finished at about 66% occupancy. To give you a reference point, 2019, the same portfolio, same business was at 71%. So my point being that if you were to break it down into demand, and demand being quantified by occupancy, occupancy has gained traction. The market segments have changed. Average rates have taken a beating. Average rates will come back in the next 3 to 4 months, 6 months maybe. And India this year is going to be a domestically driven market. So that is where business is. I think foreign inbound is going to be a little slower in its comeback. Domestic outbound also, I think, is going to be a little bit slower, except for the air bubbles that we have travel bubbles we have with some of the other some of the other markets. I think that's going to be broadly the outlay of the year ahead. The business, the industry, I believe, has gone through a fair amount of correction in efficiencies overall. Some were obvious calls to make, some were a little difficult to make. You know, a lot of colleagues have unfortunately had to go through some tough times. In the long run, I think there's been a correction in the overall efficiency level of the business, and I think that perhaps is what our biggest learning is also. You know, if you were to ask me what do you learn out of this, I think it's important to keep what happened in the last 12 months in mind and maintain that discipline for the future. You know, and it's a fact. You know, I say it quite often. I use this example. You know, this is not the first or the last time something like this is happening. You know, this has happened in the past in various shapes and forms. There was 9/11. There was, you know, the SARS crisis. All of them much smaller in terms of impact. But my point is that if you were to draw out a timeline and a time cycle and go back maybe even 100 years, on an average, you will see that every 7 to 10 years, there's something or some event like this which will come in, be it a financial meltdown, be it a 9/11, be it whatever else. You know, we just have to be extremely disciplined going forward in how we are operating and running the business. So I'm sorry, very long answer to the question you asked, but in summary, I think the worst is behind us. We always maintained an optimistic hat. And when it all started, we started at Radisson by saying that, you know, this too shall pass. I think this has passed. Survival mode is more or less for the hotel industry. And I think our reality might still be very different from the travel consulting industry reality, is what, you know, which again, I do believe that's going to come back in the next few months as well. But I think now is the time to you know, get into revival mode. And then after 12 months, 15 months, you know, it's going to be back to thriving again. But again, we have to be extremely careful and cautious about how we go ahead this year. So,
thank you, Puneet. Would you like to share where you are presently, how you are seeing the green shoots emerging?
Sure. Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Naveen, for having us here. I think, frankly, it's too early to predict a V-shaped recovery or not. We are still, there is definitely green shoots. I mean, if you look at 9 months ago, majority of our hotels were closed, or if there was any business, it was predominantly COVID-related or repatriation business. Today, we do have a lot of transient business. Occupancies across India, especially, is almost 50-55% for the last 2 months. Things are looking up. However, the rates across the board are about 50% behind 2019. I don't foresee that picking up any time sooner, and history has proven whenever there's crisis, and especially in India, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years for rate recovery to happen. So from a RevPAR point of view, we're still, as an industry, sitting at about 50% behind last year. And it's basically the same story in most parts of the world, except probably China, which is only about 8 to 10% behind 2019 numbers. I think it's too easy to claim victory. Look at what's happening in Italy. Look at what happened in UK last couple of weeks ago. Look at what happened in Mumbai yesterday. I mean, there's some seriousness in terms of the pandemic. It's not over yet, and there is still, I think, it's a long race ahead of us. It's not a sprint. It is a marathon. In terms of the business, I think what we have all learned to appreciate the power of the domestic market, because that's what we are surviving on today. 80% of our business is coming through transient retail business, either from brand websites or OTAs. Travel agents are slowly coming in as well. The groups are picking up. Corporate business is still very slow, but it's picking up. So there are definitely positive signs. A lot of SMEs who are booking, and they have realized it's probably easier not to contract with hotels, because the rates are so attractive, so they are booking on online channels as well. And I think that trend probably will continue. The big MNCs, the big IT companies, they're still yet to open. So if you look at markets like Bangalore, Hyderabad, they're still struggling. The numbers are fairly low. However, markets like Goa or certain destinations in Jaipur, they're already thriving, and the numbers are actually even better than 2019 or Jan-Feb 2020. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But I would be I would say, I want to be optimistic, but I would be very, very cautious because things can change overnight. The key, what we are telling our teams on the ground is, have your ears to the ground. You need to be very, very agile. And we are actually not even looking at full year forecasts anymore. We are looking week to week. It's all about market share, and at the most, a 3-month horizon, and then we reevaluate. Because it's really hard to predict when the international borders will open, when the local restrictions will happen. So I think we have to be agile. We have to keep our ears to the ground and, adapt to the new now we are in.
Thank you, Puneet. Sanjay, can we get the Hyatt story?
Well, thank you, Naveen, and congratulations on doing this. This is, I think, the first one in attendance after the pandemic, so great effort. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience who have come in numbers here. So really appreciate your presence here. Thank you very much. From a Hyatt perspective, I think I'm not going to talk about shapes and sizes here. It is a little risky to talk about shapes and sizes in the context we are in. And also, when we talk about comparisons, okay, 2019 this happened, 2020 this happened, 2018 this happened, I think we are spending too much of time in these comparisons. At Hyatt, we are saying that, okay, let's see what are the opportunities which this pandemic has presented and see how we can make use of those opportunities, see how we can realign ourselves, see how we can be agile, because what is gone, right? What is available in the marketplace, let's see how we can get the maximum out of it and not really start comparing that when is the business going to come back, what's going to happen, because we all know what is happening, right? We all know what kind of business is coming. It is the time to spend time on ourselves, on reimagining, look at our mindset, change our mindset, and see what we can do to, again, innovate, have personalization, have creativity, and have care. It's all about the mindset, right? So we need to, they used to say, I keep saying this, that we used to say we need to think out of the box. I think this time there is no box. We need to think very differently and forget about 2018, 2019 completely. We need to look at what is available, what we can create, how can we create experiences which will make people to travel to us, people to stay with us, how can we answer those questions, how can we manage those expectations that we actually accelerate people staying here in our hotels or the industry as such, whether it's travel, tourism, or hoteliering. So we need to really collectively look at that, collaborate on it, and do these kind of things. Numbers and all, really, I think the market has, India has actually been the torch bearer. If you look at worldwide, the kind of numbers we are seeing in India as a, I don't really call it a recovery, because recovery is something you talk about, you recover from something. Now, this is something which has happened, which never happened before. It has really tested us, jolted us, and it has really brought into a place where you have, you can learn from the history behind, but in front of you, there is a clean slate. The story is yours to write. You write the story, and this story is going to be written by personalization, by creativity, by care, and with no box. That's what my take on this is, Naveen. Thank you.
Jatin, can we get your perspective, particularly with respect to performances so far? How do you rate what's happening to 2019? And where do you see this business coming in from? I may like to add that in the morning there was one inference which I couldn't ask the general managers, that if the Indian leisure is increasing for leisure destinations, I'm particularly keen to know what is happening in the city hotels. Has business travel started reviving, or have you started tapping into the leisure?
Sure, and I think you bring about a very, very good point. Good evening, everyone. Just sticking to the business part, as you wanted, Mr. Berry, you just have to look at your business in three different cities or segments. One is resorts, and I think that's doing absolutely well. Whether you're in Goa, you're in Mahabaleshwar, or you are probably in Mussoorie, you're doing very well. And then you have tier one, and then you have tier two, tier three cities. I think tier two, tier three cities are also doing pretty well, in my opinion. But where the pressure is coming today is tier one. Your Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. These are the markets which are still struggling. And I think to Puneet's point, this is the first time you have really seen how elastic a rate can be. And in my humble opinion, what you see in tier one with all the staycation, what is happening, that is really not your true demand. Tomorrow you take the rates up and that demand will start going away. So I think we're still a little away from where our tier one market should be operating. We've seen a big hit on rates. Coming to your original question, what's happened with our associates or our employees? That's been some tough call, which I guess every brand had to take. But I kind of look at it in a little bit positive side without sounding insensitive. We had to do some course correction at some point where we were not able to probably compete and create our brand story properly, especially in the select services, where we were in a pretty, kind of muddled situation and we were getting into each other's swim lane. I think now is the time that we stay true to our brand story and do not forget as to what we really want to deliver out of this. But I think future is only bright. I personally, in an optimistic fashion, look at it that occupancies will come back. It's the rate which is going to really hurt us. What happened when Lehman Brothers fell or what happened when SARS happened, it took years and years for our industry to come back, and especially in India. So I think that is where the whole pain point will come, if you ask me, in coming years. I hope I've answered all your questions. Yeah.
Thanks, Naveen. The Sarovar picture is perhaps a little different in terms of smaller hotels and lots of hotels in different parts of the country in smaller cities, both leisure and business. But just to put things in perspective, we've had 3 to 4 months of positive growth, small but positive, all along. And in the month of February, for the 100-odd hotels that we operate, our revenues year on year were just over 50% of what we did last year for the month of February. Our occupancies were in that 53, 54, 55% zone for all the hotels. So it's positive. March is similar, maybe a notch lower, but similar. And then this year, April, May, June, with a lot of weddings and things, should put us through. So as a couple of my friends here said before me, I'm not really looking at pre-COVID as a benchmark. That's gone and over with. And I'm really not predicting what happens in the next 12 months. Honestly, we don't know. There are going to be some hiccups, for sure. At the moment, you're looking at Maharashtra. Kerala is still suffering and is down in the dumps. Bangalore is a disaster zone, and it has not changed dramatically over the last 3 or 4 or 5 months. So I think we have some tough spots, but India as a country on its own, if I isolate it from the rest of the world, barring a few minor ups and downs, we will probably go through with the vaccination program in place, probably. Amongst our supply markets, Europe is a huge mess and is not correcting itself in a hurry. I've spoken to colleagues and friends in France, in Germany, in Italy. It's one bigger than the other. And they have at the same time a certain political angle between the UK and Europe. So even their vaccination programs are a lot slower and more sluggish. So travel from those source markets is not happening in a big hurry, business or otherwise. Also, the fact remains that there is going to be some sort of a blow of COVID to travel. Are we going to get back to everyone traveling again and meeting each other and meetings happening in person? We don't know. We don't know what the next year or 2 or 3 brings. Obviously, all of us are happier and sitting face to face. I'd rather sit with Naveen Berry across the table than across the television screen. But people have learned that all that travel that we were doing wasn't really all necessary. I'm talking about business travel now. And a lot of these meetings could happen without physically getting on flights. So are we going to get it all back? We really don't know. So there's a lot of imponderables there. On the people and the staffing side, we went fairly surgically a year ago and cut down a whole lot of staff. Some of it has come back. We are also realizing now that as business comes back, whether your rates are half of what they used to be, you still need the same manpower. Somebody's got to clean those beds, somebody's got to serve the breakfast, somebody's got to make the meals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can't, while you manage the best part of a year with really skeletal staffing, the moment business comes back to your hotels, staffing has to go up. And in some cases, I'm candid enough to say that in some cases, we lost track of maintenance, of upkeep, because we were looking so closely at the cost. We said, look, all that can wait. And now we're realizing that it wasn't perhaps the wisest decision overall. So I think tough times ahead. A few months, hopefully, not more than that. But we are in that zone where we've survived, and I think we need to slap ourselves on the back and cheer ourselves for surviving a year. we're sitting here and we're talking about the future. I think that's fantastic. And we will come through. A lot of businesses are now reaching break-even levels. If I eliminate the debt part of things from the hotel business, at 30-35% occupancies, we are breaking even operationally because we've been forced to look at costs that we never ever looked at. So tough times, but good times, positive times ahead. And we need to look at it on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
I can only add that since the lockdown started getting lifted, and you had this work from home as the new philosophy of all, Mr. Bakaya started attending office from day one, and he has not missed his office one day since the lockdown got lifted. So he's totally dedicated to physical movement and to taking his bike and doing his exercises. Good luck to you, Ajay, and we feel inspired with all this. JV, over your turn from Interglobe
Yeah,
Hotels.
so, wearing an owner's hat, the experiences have been quite scary, huge debts and pile-ups, banks not responding, etc. The occupancies and all, for the IBISes have been actually pretty good. I think it's quite similar to what Ajay said. October onwards, we've been in the high 50s. We've been GOP positive since, I think it was December. So some bits and pieces come, but as owners, our problems don't sort of end there. It's far more. We're in the process of raising several hundreds of crores just to map out the next few months. We have 6 sites under development that need to be provided for. The banks don't respond. There's limited support that comes from the government. I'm not saying from moving money, but even prodding financial institutions to bring liquidity into the market. So it's been a very complex time. I think the good news is we were anyway very efficiently run. Our manning used to be about 0.6 to the room. We delayered, we clustered, we brought it down to 0.4. We may probably go up to 0.5, if needed. But I think this crisis has helped us become more efficient. I think that's one. But I think one of your questions also was, Naveen, what is the most significant change you think has happened for the industry?
Okay, sure.
In this, and, of course, segmentation, we spoke a lot about that. We at the IBIS saw, new segments of business, and we responded to it, we reacted to it quite well. But I think one of the biggest changes that we are seeing, and I'm not so sure how closely we are mapping, and this sort of, concerns all of us in the room, all of you, is distribution. I think in the last 1 year, distribution has changed dramatically. Our channels of business and flows of business has changed dramatically. Almost 70 to 80% of our business is coming through public channels, and it's the same for the airline world. And it's a trend that's going to only become bigger. And that's just not how consumption of products are happening, in other places. We are all consuming products online, but is our products are sort of, and influencers have changed for us. So that's an area, the tech side, that we are really watching very, very carefully as owners. And we believe that the way we will sell, distribute, and market the product just has to change very, very fast.
Thank you, JV. Anil, you are in a different league from many of our other colleagues in the sense that you have large format hotels. You've invested heavily in the last 3 to 5 years in big mega projects in the big cities. So for you, the impact of the last 1 year has been probably more immediate and more at home than to the smaller format hotels or to just the managers rather than the owners. So what is your experience?
Well, I think the story's been very similar to what everybody's really spoken about. If you ask me, is the problem over? Certainly not. Are we out of trouble? Certainly not. I think we're just happy that Q2 did better than Q1, and Q3 has done better than Q2, and Q4 is doing better than Q3. But to answer your question, I think the whole purpose of travel has changed. We're just creating this entire issue. It's not the occupancy. I think occupancy-wise, India's done better than what we expected, to be honest with you. You know, hotels have started doing, even the business hotels that you just asked. Leisure hotels definitely had a great run right from the time we opened, from June onwards. But I think the business hotels, we didn't know that they would scale up so fast. But the challenge is average room rate. Rates have crashed completely because the purpose of travel has changed. A corporate travel who would travel to your hotel in large hotels like Bombay, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, probably 2 to 3 visits a month, that's vanished completely. So the corporate is completely off at this point in time. MICE has gone for a long holiday. Weddings happen in small pockets. There's so many restrictions which have happened in so many parts of the city. Life is still very uncertain if you ask me. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So what I've been telling people is that make your structures which are very flexible in terms of your costs. What is not in your hand is the top line. You know, it will fluctuate. Restaurant business, we were always very hopeful that we will do well, and God willing, we've done extremely well on that front. Most of our restaurants are up to about 75-80% revenue of LLY level, or last year's level. Some have even beaten the last year's number. So that's a good side. But going forward, the story is going to remain the same. I mean, I don't see big changes happening in the corporate segment to begin with. I think the world has just got used to doing all the work sitting at a computer screen. This is really probably the second time we've all come out as hoteliers on the stage in the last 1 year, and that's going to be a big challenging situation. What is it that we can do? I think hotels in India did a great job to give confidence to people, to tell them about all our safety standards, protocols, in all the chains. You saw a lot of work which was being done. But now that's given. That's a standard already. People expect that as the minimum standard. But there is still a lot of unknown which will unfold in the months to come, which you need to be really geared up. You can't plan too much in advance. You can't say that I'm going to be selling my rooms at so-and-so price in October onwards, because everybody is saying that things are going to begin. But I think you really need to go and look at your books, how your books are filling up. If they are not filling up, then you need to show that flexibility once again and mop up what you have, just to survive.
For my second question, I'll start this way. One big learning from 2020, which you think you would like to or have already incorporated into your chain, something which you have learned, seen, and probably has a positive impact on the way forward. One big learning from 2020.
I think if you ask me one word learning, it's the cost.
Sorry? Cost.
Cost, yeah, absolutely. The cost management has been the tremendous learning. When you are swinging high on 70s and high ARRs and running fancy hotels, you don't really go line by line down the line, But what you've learned is something that you need to maintain, because when things come back, if you lose the entire efficiency of your entire cost structure, it's of no use. So for me personally, actually looking at each and every cost structure has been the biggest strength. Making flexible cost structures has been the second biggest learning. It's part of the cost. Looking at people, looking at their efficiency, right sizing. I think God's given you an opportunity to reboot, restart. And when you restart, you come out with absolutely new stuff. It also allowed you some new ways of looking at business. For example, we spoke about this a couple of months back. All of us shied away from takeaway. No five-star hotel really ventured out looking at takeaway as a segment. Today, the takeaway has become a big vertical for everybody. So you never looked at laundry as a big source of income. You never looked at So you have to keep on looking at alternate sources of revenue to going forward. That's how it is.
JB, one big learning,
Yeah, agility.
which you would like to share with all of us so that maybe we can also incorporate it?
I know. I think the word for us is agility. I think
Agility.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it very nicely. We need to figure out business models that are efficient, that are not resource hungry, that can move from fixed to variable costs if need be. Actually, there've been a lot of good news through the crisis. I think the industry, hospitality, I mean, because we are watching it so closely, responded to it very fast. They delayed, they restructured, they looked at, the food business. I know in our business, we actually ran think tanks starting in April, I think it was, or May, as early as April or May of last year, and we came up with about 40 ideas that are now being looked at, and some have already got implemented on how you could create ancillary revenues. I mean, that's an area the industry's never looked at. In the airline business, the ancillary revenue part of the airline business was in excess of $100 billion. And airlines like AirAsia and Ryanair just literally run on ancillary business. In hotels, we have such huge assets and spaces, and they've not been effectively used. So agility in communication, in the way businesses run, in keeping our models flexible, and testing new things have been. I think it's also shaken the business. So it's forced people to think, which I think, in hindsight, it's a good thing. It's terrible what's happened. But I do think that we must, if we don't come out of this looking different and running our businesses differently, then that would be a terrible, terrible loss of the opportunity that COVID has presented.
Ajay, can we have your learning?
Thanks, Naveen. Yeah, my single big learning came from my colleague Sanjay, who's sitting here. And it was to stop thinking as a typical hotelier for a while and see what you're going to do about your business. Because, you can cut costs to a certain level and everyone's doing the same thing. And if we persisted with the conventional business sources, there weren't any coming at all. So one of the trends you've seen over the last year or so is that all of us are spending a lot more time watching TV, and we moved on to Netflix and Amazon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those shows that you see with limited levels of censorship in some cases are being produced somewhere. So we went and did a fair amount of research on finding out who's producing where. And there's lots and lots and lots of smaller production houses across the country that are doing these shows that need hotel stays, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 2, sometimes for 3. And we were able to get a huge amount of business and a huge amount of mileage out of sources that we'd never really approached in the past before. So the learning was stop thinking as a hotelier, think a little differently, and see what you can do for your business. Thank you.
Thank you. Jatin?
Well, for me, when you look back last 1 year, what straight away comes to mind is speed to market, which is purely nothing but your decision making in different verticals. Whether you talk of technology, which will help you moving forward to drive efficiencies. You talk about food and beverage. While Anil was talking about, I think we as Marriott were the first ones to drive Marriott on wheels. And today I can safely, proudly say that probably we've made $3-4 million in that in the last 7 to 8 months, which is absolutely great for us. So I think speed to market is what will define companies, which will be the big differentiator. Because at the end of the day, when you look across this panel also, at the end of the day, hotels are hotels. You will find same loyalty programs, a little bit here and there different, but it's the speed to market which will really define us.
Sanjay?
So I think my colleagues here made some very, very valid points regarding the business and how what is the best learning there. I would actually take a step back and say, what leads to business? What is our learning there? I think we talk about, our learning. At Hyatt, we always talk about Hyatt family, right? Our learning was about the value of emotional connections. Because for us, business is not about business, it's about emotional connections. It's not a mere transaction. And if you look at it, all of us sitting here, we're really, really concerned what was happening from a emotional connection perspective. So if you take care of the emotions, in India more so, business is done automatically. So how do you take care of those emotions of all the stakeholders, whether it is your guests, whether it is your owners, whether it is your colleagues, or whether it is the community at large. Now that leads to well-being, right? So the learning was that the investment which is going to happen in well-being, because of these emotions, because of these connections, how do we take care of that well-being? How do we take care of feel? How do we take care of how we feel mentally, our mental well-being, our emotional well-being? How do we fuel ourselves? How do we fuel our mind, body, and soul? And how do we function? How do we provide tools so that we function well? So I would actually take it a little differently and say that our learning was actually music to us, where we said where we have been always talking about the Hyatt family, and it is about the emotional connections, and more so in India, where if you take care of the emotions, business is done. So I would say that that's something which we would love to work on even more.
Thank you. Puneet, your recollections?
Naveen, I think from our point, a core point, the key learning for us was control the controllables, right? And we are in the people's business. We call our employees artists. So it was very important at the time of crisis, and we are still in it, to really show solidarity with our artists. And it's easy to say that, so we actually put our money where our mouth is. So early 2020, we suspended our dividend. We are a publicly listed company in the CAC 40 in Paris. 70 million euros out of that dividend, which was supposed to be distributed, was earmarked to help employees, partners, vendors all around the world who were suffering already. And we anticipated this crisis will last for much longer. So that funds were earmarked to help all our employees, our vendors, our partners around the world. What it meant in India, and I shared a video for you, which we did for Core India and South Asia a few weeks ago. So we have positively impacted close to about 3,000 of our artists. More than about 7 crore have already been distributed in funds to these artists. And the fund is still continue because the crisis is not over, the pain is not over. So it was really important for us to really show solidarity with our employees, with our people. And I think that I'm really proud of being part of Accor, and that as a company, we decided to do this very early on when the crisis started in early 2020.
Zubin, you too share your learning curve.
Yeah, many learnings from last year, but I'll just say what is top of mind.
Just take your mic up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that I'll just say what's top of mind. There have been many learnings from last year, and learnings that will go a lifetime. The first big learning is, and I'm talking at a higher level now, not getting into the nuts and bolts and the semantics of business. First, you don't, in fact, let me put it another way. You control, you worry about the things you control. That is the variables that you have in your hand. And what you don't, have in your hand, which is the outside external variables, which, and if you look at the, if you were to chart last year, suddenly from the last week of February, the second week of March, from a 70%, you go down to the third week to a 0%, occupancy, and then this stay there for 3 months, and then you start coming back. You cannot be strategizing about factors that are not in your hand. Fortunately for us, we did 2 things. One, we already had at that point in time a 3-year operational restructuring plan of the India business. And our plan was around creating and unlocking synergies in the India business. And what we did was successfully, I'm proud of all the teams who worked in that we used that opportunity to fast track that 12-month plan for last year into 12 weeks. And we can now evidently see the impact of what we did last year. The second big learning was, and again, I think it's a big one for us, is keep as much as you can your teams together. It's not a business doesn't run by itself, it's the teams that run the business. So from our perspective, extremely proud that, we handled that part fairly well. and our teams were together. I think it was a period for us where the entire company, across 100 units, both at the corporate as well as the unit level, we all just came together and we worked collectively as one big fine team, and we can already see the results coming out of that. So together we are stronger. That's the other lesson. And the last lesson is, I think fiscal and operational discipline always pays. So one has to, again, many ratios are corrected now. I'll not go into what the ratios are. But I think it'll be a big waste if those operational efficiency ratios were to go back to historical levels. So there's been some big learning. I think from an owner-investor point of view, there's some real ROI that's been created for the long term. And I think it's up to us to be able to maintain that. Because, the human tendency is to go back to what your natural state of doing things is in a few years. And I just hope we keep it clean and keep it straight line for the future. Thank you.
Starting again from you, how's the supply side looking? A quick one, so that I can...
For the industry, you mean, or for us?
Supply side from you in terms of the impact of 2020. Is there a fallback in terms of rooms, or you slowed back your growth, holding it back?
Okay, so 2020, we were still able to, despite a bad year, sign about 8 hotels. We opened 3 hotels last year. Many of our hotel openings got deferred to this year, so there's typically been a 6 to 12-month delay. The projects which were early on in the initial stages have probably got an owner scare, so some of them have actually been deferred for a longer term. But many of them were last mile projects, so they get pushed forward. This year we'll end up opening 15 hotels. We've already opened 2. We launched a new brand. We will cross 100 hotels. We will open our first Radisson Red. We'll open some really beautiful looking hotels, some flagship Radisson Blues all over the country. So from our perspective, our pipeline and our supply side, we are strong about. The development team's been, I would say, and we've seen owner interest started coming back into the business, right? So I'm optimistic. I think we have 60 hotels in the pipeline, and there might have been delays, 6 to 12-month delays, but let's say I've hardly seen very few projects get completely washed out. That's not happening. There's a delay, and that's understood. So.
Vineet, how's the supply side looking at record?
So I think the pipeline still stays robust, and to agree with Zubin, there hasn't been any projects that have been permanently shelved or been cancelled because of the pandemic. Yes, there are delays, and understandably so. So I think we are, from a core point of view, looking at introducing the legendary Raffles brand into India, hopefully in the next couple of months in Udaipur, an amazing property on Lake Uday 21 acres, 101 rooms. I think the LG gentleman earlier showed a mock-up room picture earlier. The property is just looking amazing. We'll be opening a Novotel in Chandigarh in the next couple of months. Our 20th Ibis will open in Vikhroli. Again, kind of a new generation, new design, new spirit Ibis. We're all looking forward to that. Plus, I think we see a huge opportunity for conversions. There are a lot of discussions across India. So there is some sort of demand that was kind of holding back in 2020. So a lot of investors, funds are back into the market. And I think this should pick up pace in the next 3 to 6 months. So generally, it's looking quite robust, yeah.
Sanjay, a look at Hyatt. Any impact of 2020?
I mean, as you know, Hyatt is very uniquely placed. We want to be the most preferred chain, not the largest chain. And that's why we have the agility and we have the nimbleness within us. We are very solid financially. And if you look at it, this year could be our best year in openings. We are scheduled to open 10 hotels this year, which has never ever happened before.
In 2021?
In 2021. So hopefully all goes well and we are able to open those hotels. So very well placed because of our positioning where we are, where we stand.
And the Marriott story in terms of the pipeline?
Well, I think just to put it on a lighter note, I think only business development people have made their bonus last year. Nobody else. So it was a good year for us in terms of signings. So that is one good news when you look at future, that people are still signing. Owners want to build hotels. They have confidence in our industry. From an openings point of view, obviously projects are delayed like everybody else, and we're looking at almost 7 openings, but Goa is going to be one of our biggest market. We're looking at opening another 2 resorts over there, one in Dehradun as well. So it's going to be a good year, decent year, not as good as 2019, when we opened almost 15 hotels, but the pipeline is looking strong. Yeah, thank you.
Ajay, how's your growth going to look like at Sarovar?
Some delays, but nothing out of the ordinary. We opened 6 hotels last year despite COVID. We should open at least 10 this year. We are now also managing the Golden Tulip portfolio in India, so that's an add-on. And signings are aggressive. Signings have done very well in the last 3 or 4 months.
Any more overseas?
2 in Nepal we just signed.
2 in Nepal.
Yeah. Thank you.
JV?
Okay, so I'll again have to give it a slightly different spin here. As owners and as investors. So from a supply side, Naveen, we will continue to finish all our committed projects. Puneet spoke about the Vikhroli one. We'll open that in June, 250 rooms. Hopefully we'll open our Hebbal in December, I think. And then, you know, we've got Goa coming up. We've got a Novotel coming up in Bangalore. We're starting a new project actually in Mumbai, another 207-roomer on CST, and so on. So we will continue to keep investing. We're already working on our 10-year plan. We are working with our investors to raise another 3,500 crores. So all that is going on. But there are bigger issues on the supply side, and I don't think the industry sort of addresses that. And I think that's a big issue for us as owners. You know, the industry looks very nice and healthy at a GOP perspective, but at the ROI perspective, it's terrible. You know, and quite often, and you probably go through that as well because you're big investors, that you keep asking yourselves, you know, are we in the right business? I mean, you know, we are in a sub-$100 market, right? And the government laws are such, policy is such, that it just makes the whole business, the investment in the business, at least 30% inefficient. Load that up with a lot of the brand stuff that kicks in. You know, you're getting involved in a business where you will get very, very poor ROI except for some markets. I think that as an industry we need to address. We actually used this time during COVID. In June, we presented a big white paper to the government. It was very well received. I think I sent you a copy as well. That sort of enlightened the government on how we could make the industry more efficient from an FSI perspective, urban planning perspective, fund perspective, et cetera, licensing perspective, and things like that. So while supply will keep coming in, and we will forget these, well, hopefully forget this time, but I think as owners, we have bigger issues to solve.
Fully appreciate.
With the government.
Fully appreciate. And you want to chip in something to what JB is saying?
Well, I think the last year was very slow. We also just opened 1 hotel. We had planned for a big bang year, but unfortunately it didn't work out. So this year we have 9 openings in the next 13 months. There are 4 of our own hotels, 5 managed properties. What has really happened in the last 2 months is a lot more calls now. You know, you can see, you can certainly see a lot more demand for welcome hotels, where standalone owners want to, you know, come and explore this brand because they find a merit in the entire distribution, what has happened in the last 1 year and how Indian hotel companies have survived with the entire loyalty base domestically. So you can see certainly things picking up momentum, and hopefully what we promise is what we deliver this year.
My last question before we wind up the session. In the morning, there was this general managers of all your properties sharing fairly positive notes on the business coming back. It was a very positive. Subsequently, we had a session where there were some tour operators talking inbound tourism. And they were struggling on their business side. They're not totally staring at uncertainty. I have a question which says that if the big talk about transferring the Indian outbound to domestic, that convert them, because there is no outbound happening, convert them into domestic. There's a big market there of people who want to travel. And if you start filling in your rooms with the domestic travel, is there a possibility in the near future or medium future that you'll end up saying goodbye to inbound? or inbound will cease to matter as much as it did, say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's a major industry issue, because what is the kind of ecosystem that we will have in the industry is what I'm actually putting up forward. What is the role of an inbound tour operator if the Indian hotels are more than happy feeding domestic? So, up to you to answer that, please. Yes.
Somebody used the word agility.
Sorry?
Somebody used the word agility.
JV.
Yeah.
Ask
So
him.
we have to be
he'll define
agile.
it
I
for you.
don't think we're going to do away with inbound. When it comes, we'll embrace them. Right now, we're going to embrace the domestic one and see what they want. What are the kind of experiences they're looking for? They've helped us in our resorts in big way in the last few months. The domestic tourist, he's willing to spend the money, he's willing to do his functions, his weddings that he was taking outside of the country, in the country. Smaller places for us like Mashobras and Palampurs, etc., all of a sudden boomed with weddings and those businesses. So yes, right now the focus is, I have the domestic tourist, I have him probably captive for the next 6 to 12 months. How can I deliver more to him than I've ever done in the past? What experiences can I build for him? Am I going to say no to inbound when it picks up? Not at all. I'm going to embrace them equally happily and equally aggressively.
Do you suspect there could be some kind of a restructuring in your business? Because you will discover in the process that a lot of the Indian travelers are paying you actually more than what you were getting from the foreign traveler.
Yes and no, depending on what you're looking at. Yes, to some,
Anil,
to
would
some
you like to
extent.
chip
Yes,
in
to some
on this?
extent,
Because
no.
you have run two very major hotels, one in Agra and one in Jaipur.
I completely agree with him. Why should you stop anybody at this
Not
point
stop.
in time?
What I'm
So
saying is, could there be a
it's-
possibility you'll end up
no,
saying
it's not
goodbye
that
to
the
India?
Indian travel, I think it's again go back to the purpose of travel. See, if you were to take an Indian wedding abroad, I think this is the best opportunity for the Indian hotels to hold them back. There was a reason why somebody went to Thailand and somebody went to those fancy places, but what they have witnessed, that what India has to offer is a great opportunity. You know, there's some beautiful destinations in India. So today, if you, going back to your first question, what would you do, what would the tour operator do, is exactly what a hotelier did. You just change tracks completely. When you knew on the 1st of April that corporate is going crashing, when you knew that MICE is crashed completely, you couldn't just go back home and sleep and say, okay, nothing is going to happen. You had to change your tracks, you had to look for a new guest, you had to look for a new segment, you had to look for an alternate source of revenue, you had to look at your costs. There is a great opportunity, I totally agree with you. And especially in many hotels in the business locations, is about experiencing what Sanjay was talking about. You are seeing a completely new traveler today. You know, people who didn't travel to our hotel, for the first timers have become tremendous. It's now what you can do to retain them back. What is it that you can do to, get them back? Word of mouth is spread very well. So there is a great opportunity, some great experiences, some great partnerships, some great packages. All those opportunities are completely available.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we do believe there will be a restructuring. It's a factor of per capita and contribution to GDP. As per capita will grow, discretionary spending will go up. We've been seeing that trend. The aspiring market that exists in India is massive. If you look at how products are getting consumed across industry, it's just growing. Even actually, if you look at consumer spending right now, in Q4, that's just gone past October to December Q4 of 2020, is just 3% below what it was in Q4 2019. So consumer spending is almost coming back. So that's one. So per capita at whatever, 2,500, climbing to 3,000, 4,000, exponential growth in consumer spending, discretionary spending. So that's one. The second thing that we must understand that even if you look at and map domestic travel today, which is about, I think, 1.8 billion trips before COVID, as opposed to what the government claims 10 million into India, possibly it's about 2.5 million. If Kapil is here, he can prove that to you. Very small numbers. Look at historically how international travel has moved. It always starts with cross-border, regional travel. Big numbers come from regional travel, small and medium haul travel, right? And we don't even have those products yet. It'll probably take time for that infra to come up. But by then, India would race ahead. And when we look at our business, in fact, Puneet mentioned it across the IBISes, we are very clear. We are here for the domestic market. 85% of our business is domestic. Our product is aimed for the domestic market. food, beverage, everything is aimed at the domestic market. There will be a restructuring, not because inbound will shut down, as things will open, it'll probably continue to grow, but the exponential growth will come from domestic market. India will consume by 2030 6% of global consumption. That's World Bank figures, and that's going to happen.
Thank you. Anyone else on this subject? Yeah.
No, I think I kind of agree with all three panelists before me. But it's not a simple yes or no, but please remember that you still have 45% of your inventory lying vacant with you. Your inbound still hasn't started, so by anybody saying, will there be a course correction or will there be a segment shift, that is always bound to happen. Business keeps on changing. If your corporate travel is not coming back entirely, you will look at new segments. You'll keep on improvising. I think it's more about, how the business demand will change. But yes, one thing is for sure, with the government of India's UDAN scheme, new airports coming up. I was with one of the Indigo senior person recently, and they were talking about sector of Bareilly, which is open. Now that is really yielding good return for them because people are going to Jim Corbett from there. That was not a sector earlier for them. Similarly for SpiceJet, Kishangarh. Here are the new destinations. While your Goas and your, Mahabaleshwars will still keep on thriving, it's the new destination where the domestic consumption will start going up. So I think there will be some correction, but not in a major shift. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have a few things to add. First, I think I absolutely agree with what JB said. Absolutely, I think those economic variables and fundamentals are here to stay. A couple of things happening here. We need to take a short-term view and then we need to take a medium to long-term view. In the short-term view, foreign inbound, let's say for the next 12 to 18 months is going to be impacted. The offset, and again, it's not a complete offset, but point being that there's, let's say, the domestic outbound market is also, I would say, equally impacted, if not less impacted. So there is high dollar paying or high, let's say, higher paying customer willing to explore domestic Indian markets. That's an opportunity in itself. The second thing, which I do very strongly believe in, and we've seen it, and I think clearly because our portfolio distribution lies across more than 70 locations in more than 60 cities, so we have a very good deep dive into what markets, and how and when and how, the trends are moving. And we can clearly see distinctions emerging between Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 markets now. I think the long-term evolution of this is that India is going to open up in Tier 3, Tier 4, and Tier 5 towns eventually. 4 and 5 may be a little bit later, but I think there's the outcome of all of this is that there's going to be many unexplored tourism-worthy destinations domestically that will open up out of this. And I think domestic tourism will eventually, like very rightly pointed out, 87% of demand in India is domestically driven. I think that number's gonna stay. And I think if you look at the long-term trend, and I'm going to digress for a second, and that's the last point I'm making here. If you were to go back into the occupancies of India as a destination, and if you were to go back and plot from 2000 and go all the way to 2020, you would probably notice that, of course, there's going to be peaks and valleys in that graph. But if you were to take a straight line average, that's been pretty consistent. Despite almost, I would say, 100% increase in supply, occupancies remain at a certain level. So, we have to take that long-term view. I think I have a very bullish view on India as a destination in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll come to the end of our session. I'm afraid we've done a 10-minute overrun. One. Two.
Hotels are coming back to business with 50 to 60% occupancies. Some resort hotels, Goa, hill stations, Jaipur, Udaipur are doing much bigger numbers. Same case with the revenue. But I want to convey one thing, that domestic tourism, which we said is the base of the pyramid of the Indian tourism, and we agree on that. Whether it's China, whether it's India, and Europe as a whole, this thing, same, I take them as domestic. But one observation as an inbound, that the Indian domestic market, which is now into the hotels, in the high quality hotels, 4-star, 5-star and luxury hotels, are the ones, most of them, who are actually outbound people. Those are the ones who have been going to Maldives with 67% Maldive Indian arrivals. The moment outbound from India opens, that's going to dry. That's one point. Second, we know and you know and everybody here knows for sure, the corporate traffic, which hotels bill them as big time, and we accept that, are not going to come so soon. I've spoken to quite a few corporate honkos over the last 1 year, and they are very, very happy. I'm just coming to that.
No, I
they
know,
are very,
but
very
can
happy
you please
for
come
that.
to the question?
So, no, why I'm saying that now, that inbound, when it opens, it will come back to India, and we need to give it a priority. I would like ITO as inbound to have a meeting with the hoteliers at your level, how we take inbound forward. If not 2021, 2022, because that's a very, very important integral part. That's what I want to say, and like to offer that from ITO and together with the faith. Thank you.
Thank you. Lajpat, you had a question?
गुड इवनिंग एवरीबॉडी मेरा नाम लाजपत राय है
अच्छा.
and I must compliment Naveen ji for getting all the hoteliers, big hoteliers, so I didn't want to lose the opportunity to ask one question. I am doing inbound operation from Japan. I used to do almost 5,000 people every year pre-COVID. But this year, my inbound was zero. There was no revenue. In my balance sheet, the income is zero. So I'm forced to think some other alternative measures. So I plan to do domestic tourism. Domestic tourism में बिल्कुल अलग तरह का चलन है. The main thing is any domestic client. First he will go on the online platform. He will check all the rates. Then he will come to me कि यार आप बताओ आप मेरे लिए क्या करोगे. हमारे लिए प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि जो रेट होटल्स ने अपनी वेबसाइट पे डाले हुए हैं या ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म पे जो डाले हुए हैं वो बहुत कम है. मैं आपसे एक ही रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहता हूँ कि अगर आप इनबाउंड टूर ऑपरेटर के लिए या एनी डोमेस्टिक टूर ऑपरेटर के लिए सेम रेट कर दें. आप चाहे उसको होटल का कमरा ना दें, अगर आपका होटल फुल है डोंट गिव हिम द एकोमोडेशन, बट एटलीस्ट लेट मी कोट टू द क्लाइंट. हो क्या रहा है कि मेरे से क्लाइंट जब कोटेशन लेता है तो मेरी कोटेशन महंगी है, because I don't have that kind of a rate which is put on the website or on the OTA platform. So could you please just give it a thought, because inbound tourism में organized sector में 3.5 million tourists जो tour operator handle करते थे, they are literally on a road, and I don't know when the incoming is going to come again. It is going to be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, nobody can say. So you have to be kindly consider this. Thank you.
I think what he's saying is a very, very relevant issue. And if some of my colleagues on the panel earlier said that one of the learnings during COVID was this family feeling within your hotel company, the larger community connection that you have with your associates and the rest. Somewhere I think this does deserve some bit of an attention from the hoteliers as to what your distribution arm, somebody talked about the changes in the distribution, but they have been your steadfast supporters ever since you started your businesses.
No, we appreciate that, but I think if we only talk emotion, none of us are going to get anywhere. So I do take your point, and I think we're happy to work together. I think from people with your kind of background as experiences, you have to add so much more to the domestic tourist in terms of what experiences he will get. You can build special experiences rather than just fight a rate war. On a rate war, everybody is a loser. But we are more than happy to work with you going forward. And we appreciate what we've gone through with you together to build our business over the last so many years, and it will continue in the same vein. So we are very much with you. Thank you.
And Mr. Rai, I would like to second what Mr. Bakaya said. We're more than happy to work. I think that is absolutely a very important point, and well taken and noted. Thank you.
I think one of the good news which I can share with you, at least from Merit perspective, is that at one time with the domestic wholesalers, we were on a static rate, which is where your problem comes that the benchmark rates are lower. We're actually going on that for dynamic, which would help you to probably have some kind of a leverage, which will help you to have your own client base. So I think that will come soon, everybody's way. Thank you.
Rohit, you had a question? A quick one, because we are running a little late on the next session. No? It's already answered. Lajpat has already done the trick for you. Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being such delightful panelists, thoughtful, provocative, forward-looking, introspective, everything all together at the same time. Thank you very much. Thank you.